It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast, talking your real estate right around Australia 7 days a week. And as heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Amazon. It is a Thursday, working through our working week. It is August the 15th, halfway through August already. And it's been a while since we have been talking about the Gold Coast, and it reminded me of the fact that we have never talked about an area of the Gold Coast called Hope Island until we received an email from a listener who was moving from Hope Island to the Sunshine Coast, or was it to Brisbane? I can't quite remember. But if you haven't heard of Hope Island, I was surprised to learn that the population there is 14,500. That was the consensus back in 21, so probably more than that now. There are 3 little towns within Hope Island, each established around a real estate development, and one of those is Sanctuary Cove. This is a gated community in the north of Hope Island, and really Hope Island has become a bit of a haven for affluent boating enthusiasts, attracted by its bridge-free access to the main river and the Gold Coast Broadwater. Now, Domain tells us that despite a 90.5% rise in the median house price over the last 5 years, and that median price is sitting at around $1.7 million, properties are still considered undervalued compared to major Australian cities. So we're going to take you to Sanctuary Cove, get a little bit of a taste of the real estate and the lifestyle there. And we're going to catch up with Jo Calder, who is living slap bang in the middle of Sanctuary Cove. And Jo, welcome to the Real Estate Breakfast. Great to have you on this morning.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
So tell us a little bit about your situation, because you have moved. I detect that there is an English accent there. So you've moved from the UK. How did you come to land in Sanctuary Cove, of all places?
Yeah, correct. Originally from the UK, we moved here, myself, my husband, 3 children, back in 2018. We were offered a job opportunity through my husband's role, and we hit gold first time. So, very, very fortunate to land in Hope Island.
Yeah, so from the UK, you would never have heard of Sanctuary Cove, and I think that's fair comment. Striking gold first time. So what was your initial reaction when you landed?
Yeah, we just couldn't believe it. Obviously, having the water so close by, the beaches are phenomenal, and also tapping into the nearby hinterland. We really do have it all here.
Now, I was surprised, as I mentioned, the population there, it will be probably over 15,000 people now living in the region. It's a gated community. A lot of people won't realise that, and there's this safety component. And I guess in 2024, we tend to pay maybe a little bit more attention these days to security. So it's a very safe area to raise your children.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Our youngest daughter, she's 13, just having that reassurance that, you know, she can go out, she can go and meet her friends, go to the shops, etc., all by obviously having that level of security around. It's a great comfort to us.
The suburbs are described as luxurious waterfront homes, which really do probably epitomise trophy properties. Hence the reason for the median house price at 1.7, but undervalued. That's the interesting thing. Very much undervalued compared to other Australian cities. So you get to have a good look at some of these homes, and some of the building that has taken place over the last 5 years. It really has grown, hasn't it? So perhaps talk to that.
So definitely seen an increase in property development back in 2018. Obviously, it was well established, but significantly more so, more building going up after COVID.
So in terms of people that you know that have come into the area, no doubt you've got your own network. You work at a local gym. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But people moving into the area and buying property, no doubt your network is quite big because the fitness industry, everybody knows everybody. So talk about that network of people that you see moving it.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen a lot of people move up from Sydney and Melbourne, and one common theme is they can't believe, obviously, the facilities, the luxury lifestyle that they obviously can achieve here in Hope Island, Sanctuary Cove.
Well, we are talking to Jo Calder, living the dream by the sound of it in Sanctuary Cove, which is one of the suburbs of Hope Island on the Gold Coast. You know, it's all about discovering these pockets of real estate that you might not have heard of before, especially if you're not living in and around the Gold Coast or Brisbane or even the Sunshine Coast. So we'll come back after this with more.
Every week we present so much real estate. Powerful, up-to-date news every morning from 6 a.m. Know your property with us on the Real Estate Podcast.
Well, I see that the Reserve Bank in New Zealand yesterday cut the official cash rate by 25 basis points to 5.25%. Interestingly, it's the first cut in 4 years, with the Reserve Bank of New Zealand saying that it was confident inflation was under control and would land and remain in the 1 to 3% target zone. The Reserve Bank started increasing the cash rate in late 2021, so they've been going since then. However, in recent months, economic data has shown that inflation is slowing in New Zealand, unemployment rising and economic growth stalling. So we talked, last year particularly about the lag effect compared to New Zealand. So maybe this is a sign of things to come in Australia.
It's time to go back to the Real Estate Vault for this week's property comment.
And when you add in the money that was COVID related with payments to businesses, etc., those two things really drove the economy. Fast forward now, though, how do you think that we are moving on from all of that as the RBA still tries to tame the economy?
You're right. At the time, I was calling what happened with people accessing their super, the JobKeeper, job seeker stimulus, the mortgage holidays and the low interest rates. I was calling that an outsized stimulus because the amount of money was just so much bigger than what people could spend in the economy that year. So it wasn't clear to me how that was meant to stabilize things during COVID because there was nothing to spend your money on. It didn't matter if someone had an extra 20 or 30,000 in their bank account. Sure, they could buy a new TV. Sure, they could buy a caravan, but only a small portion of that extra money would be spent. Like pulling on a spring, we loaded everyone up with cash in their bank, and then we opened up the economy, and the weight has shot up to the sky, and we've seen a little bit of a correction from that. But I think actually what we will see is another bounce. So just like a spring, it resonates and it bounces. I think the economy has some of those features in it as well. And I think that's part of the story of why house prices, for example, bottomed out.
From buying strategies, a fluctuating market, the importance of data, geographical differences, confidence in the market, rental yields. Stay informed every morning from 6 a.m.
And right now it is time to take off to Melbourne, back to Werribee with Reese Beckley this morning. And Reese, you've got a property tip for us this morning.
In relation to the contract of sale and the Section 32, it's always great to get these things diligently looked at before you do present yourself to auction, especially because auction terms are a little bit differently. It's always great to look into the contract to see if there's any body corporates associated with the estate. Through the Wyndham Corridor, we do have quite a large amount of actual land estates that do have body corporates associated with them in the way of gyms, pools, and those types of facilities that will have some annual costs. It's always good to just do your due diligence before you put your hand up at that auction.
From interest rates rising, a shifting landscape, rentals running hot, clearance rates, a tight rental market, we cover it all every morning from 6 a.m. on the Real Estate Breakfast.
And it's another Real Estate Thursday as we bask in the sunshine spot of Hope Island and in particular Sanctuary Cove. We are back with Jo Calder this morning, who has been living there for 5+ years. And Jo, I'm trying to remember the last time that I was there, probably around 2010, I'm guessing. So I guess I wouldn't recognise the place in terms of the development that has taken place during that time, not just, of course, in Sanctuary Cove, but the area as a whole.
Yeah, local supermarkets, obviously services, shops, etc. It's all increasing, not just in Hope Island, but local neighbouring towns such as Coomera. Yeah, it's all on the rise.
I remember a seafood restaurant that I went to many times, and that is still there, you were telling me, still pretty popular.
Yes. George's Seafood Restaurant, a firm local with the locals, but also a draw to anybody that is visiting Sanctuary Cove.
And so tell us a little bit about what you're doing there. You're managing the local gym there, plenty of members coming through, because that's an industry that basically relies on growth, people moving into the area. Whoever set the gym up, they were onto something.
Yes. So gym and fitness manager at Sanctuary Cove Country Club. We're holding strong with just over 13,050 members. So that's servicing obviously the local community, but also extending to outside areas as well. It's a real community feel gym. It's a real honour to be here.
All right then, Jo. Well, great to catch up and chat with you there in Sanctuary Cove. Enjoy your day and thanks for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning.
Thank you, Craig.
From first-time home buyers to seasoned investors to breaking property news, discover the stories behind the real estate.
I want to circle back to these work hubs, these pods that people buy and put in their backyard. There's a bit of a difference, isn't there, with tiny homes as opposed to somebody that's got a traditional house with land?
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be things like you can't put a tiny home on your property if you don't already have an established dwelling, so I suppose with the tiny homes, also funding as well is sometimes an issue, because if it's not a permanent structure, generally the bank can't lend against that land that they have unless they can get some cash out, so get a loan against the land and then pay for the tiny home to actually be put on that property. So that can sometimes cause a bit of an issue. And the same thing with pods. Generally you could pick up that pod and take that to another site, so it's not a permanent structure, therefore the banks can't lend against it.
But if you look at Brisbane now, of course, that is the second most expensive city. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's mind-boggling what has happened to Brisbane.
It stayed growing even throughout cash rate hikes. Because of all of that growth, Melbourne just couldn't compare. And so, Brisbane eclipsed Melbourne's prices as of January, and it still just kept on growing. And that's why we're now the second most expensive capital city compared to Sydney.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.